Hello, my name is Darren Woodfork, and I'm an attorney here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the new law here in Arizona where you can seal your old criminal case. I've been talking about it quite a bit. I've been writing about it for over a year now. I've been talking about it, and it's finally here. And so back in January, Arizona started a new law where you can file a motion to erase your old or seal your old criminal case here in Arizona. And since then, I've been representing people here in Arizona file their motions, and we've been successful. If it's your first time on my channel, I have a practice here. It's my own practice here in Arizona. I've been doing it for 23 years. I do personal injury work and I do criminal defense work in the sense that I file motions to erase old criminal cases. Today I'm going to be talking about kind of what this new law does and what it doesn't do once you get it sealed. And so I've talked a few times before about some of the exceptions on who can file, who cannot, how long you have to wait, things like that. Those are in other videos. I'll put them in the cards up on top here. This video is going to be about kind of what the law does once you get your motion granted. And the reason why this comes up is because I've had a few calls over the last couple of months where people have asked, what will it do once they get their case sealed? And so once I tell them that, and then sometimes it's maybe not worth it for the clients to get their record sealed if they don't want to, if they have a certain purpose in mind. But today I'm going to be talking about all that, and so you can take the information and apply it as needed. So again, this assumes that once your case is sealed under the new law, and once we file the motion, it'll take about 60 days for the judge to sign the order granting you the motion to seal the case. And so once you have that motion done, once you have the case sealed, it's going to be sealed in the public records, and so online searches won't bring it up. However, here's where the exceptions come into place. The first major exception is if you're charged with a new crime or another crime after you've had your motion to seal. And that's basically in the statute. It just talks about just because you had your old case sealed doesn't mean it can't be brought up in a new case. And where that applies is kind of if you're charged with an offense and they want to allege a prior case, well, if that prior case is one that you had sealed, they can still use it as a prior. They can still use it as an element of the offense if the offense that you're charged with currently, if that deals with something that needs that prior to come into place, they can bring it up. If you're in trial on a new case, and if they want to impeach you with that old case, basically show that you impeach your credibility based on the old case, they can use the old case that you had sealed. So basically, once you have your case sealed under Arizona law, it can still be used against you in a new trial, in a new case, in a new criminal case. And so, it doesn't really, and also if it's sentencing too, if you're charged with a new case and you're found guilty, and at sentencing, they can use that old sealed case to enhance the sentencing here in Arizona. And so, the point about all this is that this exception, or this part of the seal law, the exceptions to that, it doesn't really apply to most people. Most people aren't going to be filing a motion to seal their old criminal case and then be involved in a new case, is what I'm trying to say. Basically, the people who have filed and successfully filed their motions to seal have had one case way back in the past, and they just want to get behind them, and that's it. So you really don't have to worry about how the old sealed case can be used for a new case, because there won't be a new case for 99% of the people. So that's the first kind of exception. What the new law doesn't do, it doesn't stop that old case being used in any new criminal proceedings. Again, that doesn't apply to most. However, the second category of what the new law doesn't do will apply to more people. And that is basically once the judge signs a motion saying that your record is sealed or erased, you still have to tell people in certain instances. And there's about 10 different instances where you have to tell people, even though it's been sealed, you have to tell these certain people when you're applying for a job or things like that. And so, and I won't go through all of them, but it's in the statute. But the most popular one, or the one that comes up the most, is the fingerprint card. So if you're applying for a new job where you have to fill out a fingerprint card, you're going to have to disclose that you've had an old case sealed when you're filling out that fingerprint card. So that's going to apply to like jobs like teachers, if jobs in law enforcement, I think, any other job where you have to get fingerprint clearance. You're going to have to tell them, even if you've had an old case sealed, you're going to tell them that. That's probably the biggest and most common thing that comes up in my line of work, or from what people have asked me, that they're trying to get a teaching job or a nursing job, things like that, and they have to fill out a fingerprint card. So that's what this new law to seal your case will not prevent. You'll still have to disclose it. The second thing is, well, it's not really the second thing, but there's kind of a category of places where you're still going to have to tell people that you've had this old case sealed. And it has to do with jobs that are directly connected to your old case that you had sealed. And so, and it tells you these things in the statute, enumerates these different jobs in the statute that says, if your old case was, say, a forgery case, and you are applying for a new banking case in a bank or financial institution, you're going to have to tell them that your old case that was sealed, that you had the old case. You're going to have to disclose you had the old case sealed because it was a forgery. It's directly connected. Forgery is basically fraud, theft by fraud, stealing, things like that. You have to tell the banks or any financial institution that you're applying for to get a job about that old case, because the law considers that directly connected with that old case. Same thing with like if you're charged with like burglary or theft and you had that burglary or theft case sealed that was 10 years ago. Well, now if you're applying for a job inside somebody's home or inside of some type of building or anything like that where you have to go into, you have to tell them about that old burglary case that you had sealed or that old theft case that you had sealed because it's directly connected to that in-home job. The other two cases that are kind of the same, if you have any type of case that you had sealed that involved a crime against kids or a crime against dangerous or vulnerable adults, that type of case, if you were able to have it sealed, and that's one of the big exceptions in the law, that if you're charged with anything serious with kids or vulnerable adults, you can't file a motion to seal at all. But if you have a case where that's not as serious as those cases, and you're able to still get your motion granted or still get your old case sealed, you're going to still have to tell the employers that if you're applying for a job where you're taking care of kids, if you're applying for a job where you're taking care of elderly, vulnerable adults, because again, that old case, if it's an old child case or old vulnerable adults case, that's directly related to the new job position that you're trying to apply for, you have to tell them that you've had that old case sealed or erased. Another issue where you can file the motion to get your record sealed, but once you get it sealed, you'll still have to disclose it. And that's going to be when you're talking about trying to get a job for a commercial driving position. You'll have to get the CDL, obviously, but when you're applying for the job in general, you'll have to tell them if you have an old case that was sealed related to driving. You'll have to tell them that if it's an old DUI case or old reckless driving case, something like that, you have to tell them if you're applying for a job for a commercial driving job. And that kind of goes back to what I said a couple videos ago about why you should get your case sealed in the first place, because applying for jobs, the job people, they're worried about liability. They're worried about getting sued. If something happens on the job and some lawyers sue the company and they say, well, why did you hire this person with an old criminal record? The employers are always trying to cover themselves. So in this particular situation where you have a commercial driving job, they're going to want to know if you had an old driving related case that has been sealed. And so again, another one of these cases where it's directly related to the job that you're applying for. And I guess most of these exceptions, or most of these cases where you still have to disclose your record even though you've had it sealed, most of these cases are job related. Again, it's the particular job that they're connected to the old sealed case. Another instance where you have to disclose your old case is, again, if you have anything related to kids. If you're applying to become a foster parent, or if you want to take kids out of child protective custody, you're going to have to obviously apply for that and obviously get approved. Well, one of those things in the application process is you're going to have to tell them if you've had an old case related to kids anyway that was sealed. That's another type of, maybe not a job, but if you're trying to get that accomplished through the Department of Child Protective Services, you'll still have to let them know. And then finally, with the federal stuff, the federal Medicaid, Medicare, things like that, if you're going to get federal benefits in any type of application that you write out, you're going to have to disclose that you've had any type of old case sealed. And so if you're filling out the application and it asks you if you've been charged with a crime or if you've been arrested for a crime and you've had that case sealed under the new Arizona law, you'll still have to tell the feds that you've had that old case if you're applying for federal aid. So those are all the things, and these are all in the law. It's written right there in the statute that if you have the old case that's connected to these jobs that you're applying for, you still have to tell them that you had the old case sealed. But with all that said, this new law sealing old criminal records is probably the best law I've ever seen in Arizona, because before you could never seal your record and get it completely off the books. Before, what you could do is you could file a motion to set aside your case. And what that meant is that you were erasing just the penalties of the old conviction. It wasn't erasing it completely off the books, whereas this new one is. And I guess in my particular case, or the reason why I personally care about the new law, is that in the law it tells you literally that you can go to an employer and tell them you have not been convicted of a crime. In an application or in a loan application, a job application, a rental application. The law basically literally says you can say no on the application. And that was always a big point of contention in the past when we would file a motion to set aside. It's like, yeah, the judge would grant the motion to set aside, but it never said anything about whether or not you still have to tell people that you were convicted of an old case. Just as an aside, what I would tell everybody is I would advise them that this is in the past. I would say after you had your motion to set aside granted, I would tell them that you can tell the new employer, you can tell on the new application that you've had an old case, but it was dismissed or it was expunged. That was the advice that we gave them, and then let them explain it in the interview or whatever, because it never erased it off the books. It was just the penalties. But again, this new law that started on January 1st of 2023, you don't have to deal with any of that stuff. You just go in and say no on the application and be done with it. So that's pretty much all I had to say with respect to what the new law, Arizona Revised Section 13911 does and what it doesn't do. But again, with those few things that it does not do, I mean, those few cases where you still have to disclose your old criminal case, it's still the statute, the new law is completely worth it. It's a fantastic law despite that. Like I said, I don't expect many people getting in trouble in a new case and being in a new trial where that old sealed case will come up. And then also, all these jobs, these are all specific jobs where you'd still have to disclose your old sealed case, your old erased case. But again, if you're not applying for these jobs, then you're not going to have to disclose it on any other job. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you would like and subscribe to this channel, and you'll get more information on this new law in Arizona. It's brand new. It's only 5 months old. So there's a lot of things that are happening. And so if you want to have information, up-to-date information on what's happening, I'll be putting it on this YouTube channel. But anyway, so that's it. Like I said, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you want to check out my website for more information, it's woodforklaw.com. It's in the description. And again, thank you, and see you next week.